Clem Delangue is the co-founder and CEO of Hugging Face, the open source AI company powering innovation across industries. He's championing transparency and collaboration in a field defined by competition and speed. Delangue embodies the movement to make AI open, responsible, and accessible. He's redefining how value is created in the age of intelligence.
Clem, thank you for coming. The clapping is good, and I'm so sorry that I'm up here so much. You're gonna get very tired of me very quick. Clem, you are the only official AI CEO on this stage today. Everybody else is touching it in various ways. So I should just ask you the question directly that I think I maybe to some extent asked Roloff. Are we in an AI bubble?
That's a good question. That's like the not even billion-dollar question, the trillion-dollar question these days,
question.
Right? I think we're in an LLM bubble. And I think the LLM bubble might be bursting next year. But LLM is just a subset of AI. When it comes to applying AI to biology, chemistry, image, audio, video, I think we're at the beginning of it, and we'll see much more in the next few years.
Why do you think we might see? I mean, are you suggesting you think some of these big LLM companies are going to fail or at least have major problems next year?
I think all the attention, all the focus, all the money is concentrated into this idea that you can build one model through a bunch of compute, and that is going to solve all problems for all companies and all people. I think the reality is that you'll see in the next few months, next few years, kind of like a multiplicity of models that are more customized, specialized, that are going to solve different problems. In a way, if you think about a banking customer chatbot, you don't need it to tell you about the meaning of life, right? You can use a smaller, more specialized model that is going to be cheaper, that is going to be faster, that maybe you're going to be able to run on your infrastructure as an enterprise. And I think that is the future of AI.
I'm wondering, it's interesting. Do you feel that, and I'm thinking of, we had Emily Choi from Coinbase up here earlier, and she was talking about when FTX blew up, kind of what that meant for everybody else in the crypto industry. They weren't involved with FTX, but there was kind of, there was residual damage that was kind of done to everybody. If there were some major, or one or two major LLM collapses next year, it's not what you guys do, but would it have an impact on Hugging Face, some sort of kind of negative second order effects?
Yes, but AI is so big. I think it's so kind of like diversified, right? It applies to so many different industries, different companies, that I think if part of it is a bit overvalued or a bit kind of like exaggerated, it's not going to have a massive impact on the field.
So, okay, so Hugging Face is best known, or is known, because you have this, you're an open source company, open source model. Why is open source important in an AI world where so many of these LLMs are closed?
Yeah, because it distributes power, it distributes capabilities, it distributes understanding. I think in AI, you have this major risk of concentrating power in the hands of a few companies. There are natural tendencies for that. And with open source, you can actually distribute that power, those capabilities, the wealth too that is created. Because open source is a foundation, right? It levels the playing field to give everyone the ability to build themselves these kinds of AI capabilities.
So are you arguing, is open source the best business model or the best moral, philosophical stance?
Hopefully it's both. That would make Hugging Face a good company, right? If we can kind of like have a positive impact in the world and at the same time be sustainable. That's kind of like what we're seeing right now. We're probably one of the few AI companies that is close to profitability. We raised.
What does close to profitability mean?
It means we're not burning.
Because it means unprofitable, right?
Yes, but we raised $400 million so far. Half of it is still in the bank. We haven't touched yet the previous round that we raised two years ago. So in AI standards, that's called profitability, because the other guys, it's not hundreds of millions that they're spending. It's obviously billions of dollars.
I'm going to get back to open source in a minute, but I want to ask, since you brought up financing, as you said, you guys haven't raised money in a couple of years. There seem to be certain large AI unicorns that seem to literally be raising every couple of days. Anthropic, again, they raised $15 billion today.
Yeah.
I assume your phone is ringing regularly with venture capitalists and private equity folks who want to give you money. Why haven't you raised in 2 years?
I think we're taking our time. I think we're taking a different approach. As I said, a more kind of like capital efficient approach. we're building a platform for the community that we hope to be there for everyone in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years. So we're kind of like taking a different approach than most AI companies. I think a lot of people right now are rushing or maybe even panicking and taking really kind of like short-term approach to things. We've been having in AI for 15 years now, so I've seen some of the cycles. And so we're learning from that and trying to build kind of like a long-term, sustainable, impactful company for the world.
I'm wondering, have you done or do you do secondaries or tenders for employees at the
Yes.
company? Is that something you do ongoing, or is that when you raise a new round, which has been a couple of years?
Both. We do it regularly. I think it's important for the field today. Talent, obviously, is a challenge for any AI company. So that's something that we need to do to have retention with your...
Last financing question. Will the next time Hugging Face raises money be in the private markets or the public markets?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, you don't? Internally, I assume you've had, I mean, do you expect the company to go public in the next 24 months? Is that, I mean, there'd be a bit of a game plan. I appreciate things can change both internally and macro, but is that the goal?
Probably not. As I said, I think we're taking the time. The goal is really to optimize for the long run. We don't have any urgency. As I said, we have like all the money in the bank from the previous round. So the idea is more like to take a long-term approach. However, I'm really excited about the public markets because we have such a big community. We have 10 million AI builders using Hugging Face today. And I know because they tell me every day they would love to be shareholders of Hugging Face too. So that's why I'm excited in the very long run about the public markets.
Let me go back to open source for a minute. One of the co-founders of Databricks, I think yesterday, said something to the effect of, we either are or risk, we being the US, losing the AI race to China because we are more closed and open, China is more open than closed. Is he right?
So for the past few months, for the first time in our history, the numbers of downloads from models coming from China is higher than the number of downloads from models coming from the US, right? You've probably all heard of DeepSeek, of Qwen. All these companies are really sharing their models in open source, and a lot of the startups, academia, companies in the US are now using them, and they're becoming the standard. This is, in my opinion, a big risk for the US, and one of the reasons why we need here in the US to push more for open source. We're seeing OpenAI starting to do that. This summer, they released their first open source model on Hugging Face. Elon Musk released the previous generation of Grok on Hugging Face. So we're starting to see more and more open source in the US, but we need much more. Because this is really kind of like the foundational technology and foundational layer. And I think we want this foundation to be from the US for American companies, from China for Chinese company, or at least have the choice between the two.
Does it matter, as you said, like the last version of Grok, the OpenAI specific model? Does it need to be the newest? I think of this a little bit like when you hear about the US and chip exports, right? Well, we're not letting China have the good chips. We're letting them have, last year's chip, last year's used car. Seems like a similar thing though, right?
Yeah, it's not directly kind of like competitive in the way that you use open source for different reasons than closed source. It's not always the same use case, the same companies that is using it. But American models need to be competitive with Chinese models, which is not the case now. So that's kind of like more the thing that you want to compare it to.
When you talk about those Chinese models, I mean, there's a hardware component to this too, right? In terms of what's being used or what Chinese researchers are using.
Yeah.
Just talk to me a little bit about that, kind of what you're seeing under the hood with that.
The interesting thing, I was saying how open source is the foundation, right? And it has kind of like impact on all the other layers of the stack. So what we're seeing right now is because most of the best open source models are coming from China, it gives them kind of like an ability to influence the decision for hardware, right? You can optimize these models for specific hardware to train and to optimize the inference. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few quarters, we see this play out with kind of like more market share for Chinese hardware based on the success of their open source software.
Long Huawei, short NVIDIA?
I mean, I think both will do well, but definitely I think Huawei is going to kind of like gain some grounds, not only in China, but in the other markets in the US. in Europe, obviously, in Africa, in Latin America, thanks to their position in open source AI.
You've kind of got these insights because of the AI developer community you have. What else is under the hood right now that you're seeing that those of us kind of on the outside looking in wouldn't necessarily see from the top?
LLMs and text AI are not growing as fast, but other modalities are. So AI for biology, for chemistry, audio, video, time series, images are growing much faster than text. So I really see kind of like much more applications of AI in other domains than text in the next few years.
Hugging Face has always, it seems, been referred to as the GitHub of AI. That seems to be this tagline that you guys have always had. And then GitHub started putting some models out there and encroaching a little bit on your turf. Is GitHub still kind of a, if not inspiration, at least kind of a model, or is it a rival?
Both. But I was reading the other day an interesting stat that GitHub released themselves, which was the number of AI-related repositories on GitHub, which was, I think, 3 million, or a little bit more than that. We have doubled that on Hugging Face. We have over 6 million AI repositories on Hugging Face. So I think we're doing well with GitHub being mostly kind of like the platform for software, and Hugging Face being the platform for AI.
Do you have any interest in possibly encroaching on their turf and becoming also at least partially a platform for software?
Not in the short term. I think we're doing well together and kind of like focusing on our use case that obviously is growing, and just staying relevant and staying important and staying the central platform for AI is already a full-time job. So I think we don't need another job.
What are you seeing in terms of the cloud? You talked about kind of what you're seeing in terms of models, in terms of hardware. What are you seeing in terms of cloud provider usage?
The volume of their revenue coming from AI-related projects is exploding. I think what they're talking about or sharing is around 20% of their revenue being AI-related today, from basically like 1% 2-3 years ago. I suspect that in 3 years, the majority of the cloud revenue will be AI-related. It's obviously kind of like a massive transition given the volume of this revenue. And so I think it's going to kind of like redistribute a little bit the ecosystem and change the way we approach this topic.
If you were in charge of US AI policy and were able to just write it and it would get accepted, what would be the one?
That would be nice.
It would be nice.
How do we make that happen?
Well, Sachs is going to be done with a job at some point. What would be the one thing you would do, the first thing you would do?
I think I would kind of like improve the incentives, remove some of the limitations to share data sets. I think it's very much a bottleneck for the US, how much companies can use and share data sets, especially compared to China. And so I think if we remove some of these limitations, you'll kind of like incentivize more open source AI that will help the field in general.
You publish a list of predictions every year. And so I was going back, and we're coming up to the end of the year, so most of the 2025 ones should have come true or not. And some have and some haven't. I'm just curious your thoughts now, whatever it is, 11, 12 months later, on a couple of the ones, a few of the 6 that you said last year.
First, I want to caveat, probably doing predictions on AI is probably one of the hardest things to do right now, right?
Well, this one was a little beyond even just AI. This was kind of macro politics. You said that you thought we would see the first major public protest related to AI. I think part of this is your French is kind of coming from your hometown.
Special affinity for protests.
Big protest. So do you feel we have seen that? We've seen a bunch of protests about a lot of things. Do you think AI has been the central focus of one?
Yeah, we've seen a hunger strike. I think it was called Stop AI, happening at a couple of like headquarters. I think it was at the OpenAI headquarters, at the Google headquarters.
But that's not thousands in the streets, you know.
No, it's more of a smaller protests. But that might happen at some point. I think now that we're starting to have more of the focus on jobs, on the economy for AI, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of it in the next few
Is that,
years.
do you view that as a risk for Hugging Face, and to be honest, your community, your developer community to some extent, that we're not quite there yet, but even to a certain extent, you see the election here in New York City, that there could be a big political populist blowback against the industry that you've devoted the last 15 years to?
Yeah, I think it's a risk. I think we need to create more trust, more transparency in AI. My experience is that when people don't understand, feel like it's a black box controlled by a few people in Silicon Valley, that's usually when they start to kind of like be reluctant, scared, and start to kind of like protest.
Do you think some of those folks who are running some of these particularly big LLM companies, do you think they see that risk the same way that you're articulating it?
I think,
or maybe if not see it, or doing anything about it is better. It's one thing to see it; it's another thing to then act.
I think they do it. Everyone has different incentives, right? You know, especially when, for example, some people call for regulation. You have different kinds of incentives. But I think everyone sees it. Then people maybe have different opinions on how to act and what is the priority. For me, the priority is really distribution of power, enabling everyone to become an AI builder, to really kind of like understand and own the technology. And I think if we make that happen, we're going to solve a lot of our problems.
You also said you thought we'd see a big breakthrough, big breakthroughs in AI for biology and chemistry. Do you think we've seen that? I know you talked about the increase in activity. Are we seeing actual breakthroughs?
I think we've seen small breakthroughs. We've seen kind of like a lot of progress in molecule predictions, and molecule design, coming from Stanford, coming from different labs, which I think if we manage to get them scaled in the next few months, that could lead to a lot of progress in the field.
Let me ask you one last one. You said you thought a big company would see its market cap cut in half by the development of AI. Do you think we've seen that?
We haven't seen that. I think I've been surprised by the ability of the big players to actually be reactive and actually hold their ground. There are natural tendencies for concentration of power, as I was mentioning, right? Compute, talent, all of that. I think part of the reasons is because it's been so focused on LLMs, as I was mentioning, that are favoring the big players, right? Because compute, size, talent. If next year maybe we're seeing a different paradigm with more like smaller models, more open source, more customized models on different domains and text, maybe that's when we start to see more apparition of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of little tech, of startups.
Are you of the believers, and this is something Sam Altman has talked about, that at some point AI will cure cancer, it's big diseases? Do you believe that?
I think a startup using AI will make some progress on these topics. Yes, for sure.
I hate to ask you to kind of spoil your own thing, but can you share with us one 2026 prediction?
I mean, I mentioned one. I think in 2026, the LLM bubble will burst, and we'll move into a world where there are more models, more customized, more specialized based on open source.
Final question for you. You guys, Hugging Face is obviously an emoji. It's all over. People have joked that if you go public, I think, did you say you wanted to have the first emoji?
Yes, on the NASDAQ.
All right. So just a very basic question. Do you have a shortcut on your phone for this emoji, I assume?
Yeah, it's.
Or do you have to like type in hugging every time and the little face pops up?
No. You have on your phone. You have like a shortcut for the emoji.
So that's what I'm saying. But you have one for the Hugging Face emoji.
Yes, of course.
Fair enough.
The reason why we picked it as a joke when we started the company, we wanted to be, as you mentioned, the first company to go public with an emoji instead of the ticker on the NASDAQ. We thought we would keep it for maybe a week or two, but the community started to put it everywhere, right, on social media.
Did you have a backup name? Like, you know, when we drop the joke, we're actually going to be called?
Yeah, and they were super boring. I remember it's like at the time people weren't calling AI, but more like bots and things like that. So my co-founder was suggesting Bot Factory or something like that. They were terrible. I'm happy we kept Hugging Face.
Clem, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.